I hope everyone is doing okay and having another fabulous Saturday. We are back with our next session in BESA program, Become a Solutions Architect, and we are so happy that you are still continuing on week 4 and trying to understand nitty-gritty details of migration on AWS, and also we'll be focusing on modernization. So let's get started. I'll add more colleagues to the screen, but while I do that, let's start with a very basic question and give me the answer based on your abilities. Like, what is your type of the movie which you enjoy the most? And obviously it could be multiple, it doesn't need to be only one. Comedy, tragedy, action, horror, romance, sci-fi, thriller, or adventure. Or if I miss something, let me know that too. Historical and war movies are also very common. But yeah, while you answer all these questions, I'll add other people to the screen. Let me start with Jeff. Let me add Jeff to screen. And Jeff is also delivering a session today at the behavioral track. Let me add Parna. Let me add Prasad. And let me also add Bhaskar to this screen. So Bhaskar is joining us for the first time. So other people you already know probably. So Bhaskar, would you be able to introduce yourself? Just give a little bit of, uh, let me add you again. Yeah. So just give me some basic idea about what you do, Bhaskar, where are you based, and what brings you to become a solutions architect program.
Sure, Ashish, and thank you for the opportunity. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. So I'm Bhaskar. I have been with AWS for last 3.5 years, and I'm working capacity of senior TAM and handling ISV customers. So what brings me to this becoming solution architect program and motivated me I see a couple of Ashish and team doing a very fabulous job and you got to interact with people and help whatever you have learned. So that's I wanted to share my opinion of the share. So that's why I'm here.
Makes sense, makes sense. And that's what brings people with the like mindset together. So that is a good thing about BESA program. We also come to know about other people, what their journey are. So thanks everyone. And I can see a lot of chats are happening. Like people love sci-fi, comedy, adventure, and yeah, lots and lots of things. Today's session with DMS and SCT. Is there an AI tool available just like AWS Transform? Kalyan, there are details. We will discuss about those things. So let's continue. And I'll remove everyone from the stage as of now, and we will focus on the concept. Keep your questions coming. We will answer them as much as we can into the chat. And we have Parna with us. Parna would be acting customer's role, and I would be acting as a AWS uh, evangelist or AWS professional, and we'll try to answer as much as we can related to the questions customers have. So we will focus on storage and data migration on AWS. Now, if you look here, there are two things we wanted to focus: storage and data migration. But we heard just last week's feedback that there were too much information in the same session. Like we talked about VMware Transform, we talked about EVS, and people were getting confused with so much stuff. So that's why we removed the storage migration. We are focusing purely on data migration as of now, so that you have spaced way of learning and like you do not rush things. Take your time, and if you need more information, we would be happy to answer questions offline. Discord channel is there, so please ask your questions there. And on the key behavioral track, which is the essential skills for next generation essays, we'll focus on target architecture, POCs, and how to earn the trusted advisor status. That is very important. You have to earn customers' trust as a solutions architect. So we'll talk about that. So let's continue and discuss about today's topic. We will be focusing on the migrations of it. And before that, I want to highlight again that the badges are up for grab. We have 3 badges released so far. 4th will be released today. So go ahead and grab them, watch the session, complete the knowledge check, and then you can get the badge. And anyone who completes all the 6 badges would be entitled for getting a completion certificate of the BESA program. So you could earn a certificate after passing all 6 knowledge checks. So don't miss this opportunity, and this will also help you in showcasing your skills to the world and also strengthen your technical knowledge. So let's go ahead and talk about storage and data migrations. So Parna, welcome as a customer. Let me know what I can help you with and what you want to understand today about the migration of storage and data.
Hey, hi Ashish. Thank you so much for being back. And yeah, I have lots of questions for you today. And we are here to discuss storage and data migration. But I really want to focus on database migration because we've got a fairly complex setup on premises. a lot of databases that we plan on moving to the cloud. Few of them we just want to lift and shift and just put them on EC2s. A couple of them, they are commercial databases, and we want to get rid of those licensing problems and move to open source. And then, of course, we also plan to modernize. So we are going to re-engineer some of our databases and thinking of going to, say, DynamoDB or NoSQL. But I would really like to know what kind of services you have in AWS to make this migration really simplified, cost-effective, scalable as well. So looking forward to hear from you.
Yeah, makes sense. And you are not the first person as a customer who want to migrate your databases, right? AWS been pivotal into migrating lots and lots of database. And if I talk about Amazon.com, it was a biggest Oracle installation in the world, right? But we got away from that, and we have now our own databases running instead of that. So we have a lot of expertise in doing database migration. So let me talk about some of the tools we have to help our customers, and some programs also, because it will not be just tool. We have to also do the process orientation or migration planning, and also we'll talk about that. Now, if you remember the slide, Parna, we discussed about 3 phases of our migration cycle. We perform assessment, what we have, mobilize, how we want to move, and then migrate and modernize, where we actually perform the migration. And in migrate and modernize, if you look, there are 2 sections I have divided. One is workload migration, where we have our applications which we want to move, like that could be running on VMware. So we discuss about EVS. It could be any other standard machines running physical servers or virtual server. That is where we discuss about MGN services also. So we discuss that. And when I come to talk about data migration, there are multiple options available. Now, few services I have highlighted here, but it is not an exhaustive list. These are the most common one. So what we have here is storage gateway, transfer family, data sync, and snow family. These are for data migration. Let's say your file system data. Let's say you have your volumes which you want to move to cloud. Let's say you have your FTP services which you want to move to cloud. So that time we can use these services. But the center which I shown here is a database migration service. This is a service which would be your go-to service for performing anything related to database migration. So I'll highlight this information to you, and then we will see what kind of use cases you have and see how we can fit into those use cases and help you in migrating as well as modernizing your database. Make sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense. And yeah, I would love to know what are the stages that we move through as we plan for our database migration.
Yeah, so if you look at any migration, and I gave example of an analogy of a people migration in the very first section, right? So
Right.
things are same in databases also, not very different. So what we have to do, we still have to check what we have. Do we have Oracle? Do we have SQL? What is the size of that? What kind of database structure is there? What schema is there? What version we are running? How much data is there? So that we need to perform as an assessment of what we currently have. Then we will figure out, okay, based on this particular information I gathered, what would be my best approach to migrate? So that is where we talk about mobilize phase. Do I have to make some changes into schema? Do I have to adjust some setting? Do I have to keep backups also into the cloud? Do I need a high availability feature? So that is where we talk about mobilize. And then we perform the actual migration. That is your migrate and modernize. So same phases apply here. Yes, the tools which are available would be little different here. You still know about application discovery service, which we discussed into the first sections, right?
Yes.
First session, right? So
So I
this
can
helps
continue
you.
using that? Are you saying it's
Yeah,
the
why
same?
not? So same service, it will help you to understand your operating system as well as your databases. And if you remember, it is able
Yes.
to map the network connections also. So whatever your database server is talking to, let's say it is talking to a backup server, or it is talking to an Active Directory, or it is getting data from time information from an NTP server. So we should be able to get everything here through application discovery service. So we use this service for assessment, and that would help us understand what we currently have and what is the configuration state of that particular workload. And then mobilize phase, if there is some schema changes required, and I'll explain more about schema, don't worry about it, I'll talk in detail about it. So we have a tool called AWS schema conversion tool. So that tool will help you. And when it comes to actual data migration, that is where the DMS service shines, and it helps you in performing the whole migration. You could do lift and shift, you could do continuous replication, or you could do one-time transfer. That is multiple options available for you. And not only these, AWS has a rich ecosystem of partners. So there are a lot of partner tools or third-party tools also available for it. So we do not restrict you from what you want to use. Obviously, we have our own services, and there are partners who have developed solutions, so you could use them purely depending on your comfort level, your technical skills, and maybe your preference for a specific type of tool.
Got it. So you have a program like MAP over here as well. I recollect you had mentioned about MAP during our first meeting.
Yeah, so that's true. So MAP would cover, MAP is Migration Acceleration Program, which people do not know. It is a program to facilitate migration to cloud, which provides you the funding, the technical support, partner support, and any other type of solutions you need. So that will also apply to databases. But we have very specific program for databases too. So we can perform MAP, that will be there. We can also perform something called OLA, which is called Optimization and Licensing Assessment. So let's say you are running 100 Microsoft SQL license enterprise grade in your on-prem. Do you need exact same thing? Probably not. So that is where we will have OLA assessment done, which will help you to reduce your licensing cost. There is database freedom. There is database migration accelerator with a fixed price and data lab. So these are some programs. I encourage people to check about these programs on AWS website. You would be able to find a suitable program for you. And most of these are driven by partners. So partners should also be able to help you with your database migration. So this is the framework. And then there are tools available.
All right. So do we need to pick only one of the programs, or they can be combined as well?
Good question. It depends. It depends on multiple factors, because it may happen like if you have 100 databases and out of 70 qualifies for one program, 30 qualifies for another program. So there are options available for stacking these programs together or combining them or creating some customization, but it purely is a case-to-case basis discussion. It cannot be generalized to answer your question.
Got it. And I noticed that the tools that you've mentioned over here are all AWS specific tools. So for database migration, I can also use native tools, right? So can you tell me any benefit that I can get by using AWS specific tools over native data migration tools?
See, I would say it is mostly comes a choice of a customer, right? So native tools means the tools provided by database vendors themselves. So those tools are designed for homogeneous migration. What we mean by homogeneous migration is that we have same database as a source and same database as a target. That is where we call it homogeneous, with same engine to same engine migration happening. Oracle to Oracle, MySQL to MySQL, Microsoft SQL to Microsoft SQL. So better to use native tool in that cases, because if you are running databases on-prem, your team already is performing backups, right? Your team is already performing replication, making highly available solution. So they are already aware about these tools. So if there is a native database tool available for migration, you could have used them. And these tools can follow different approach for that. Like it depends from vendor to vendor. Like if you can do a full backup of your database and then restore that into cloud. For that, you can use Microsoft SQL Server databases, full and differential backup, which is a .back file. Oracle has a RMAN tool, which you can leverage for it. Then logical backup can be done. So third-party providers can take backup of your database and then restore into a destination, which is into cloud. Then you may also use high availability feature, right? So you could go ahead and say, okay, what I'm going to do, I am going to have my on-prem database here, and this is my active. And then I would be creating a standby of that into cloud. So then once I have performed all the sync, this is highly available solution, I would then disconnect my active and the standby will become my active. So those kind of solutions can also be used, provided by the vendor. And most vendor have solutions for backup, restore, or replication. So you could leverage those tools also. If you have expertise, you do not require a lot of complication, you can use migration tool which are natively provided. But if your use cases require some additional settings to be done, then probably DMS would be a better choice for you.
I get that. So I'm guessing for a heterogeneous migration, I think DMS would be a better choice. Is that true?
Means I won't box DMS only for heterogeneous migration, because a lot of
It's
benefits of DMS when you are using even for a traditional native database
right.
homogeneous migration too. So it serves both purposes. So it is not just for heterogeneous, it serves homogeneous also and heterogeneous also. It mostly depends on expertise, the time, and the feature set you are looking for.
I get that. So can you give me a little overview of the architecture as well as the migration process? What really happens behind the scene?
Yeah. So see, database migration is a very critical task, right? Because you can create an EC2 again, but you cannot generate the data you accumulated in 10 years. So you have to be
Right.
very thorough in planning of this. And that's why I want to take a step back and give you some concept of database migration so that you are aware about what are the basic concept, and then we can build on top of it. That would be much easier for you. So is it okay if
Sure.
I talk about some basic concept first?
Yes, yes, that will make sense.
That good. And let's go ahead and talk about some basic concepts so that you understand how migrations actually work. So one thing which most databases have, or I would say every database which has, is called transaction log. Now their name can be different. Somebody may call it a general as a database vendor, somebody may call it database log or audit trail, but the concept is similar. What we do here, that whenever your database gets a write request, so let's say write request comes to database. Now if it's a small database, maybe it's okay to that commit that right now. But mostly when we are talking about enterprise databases, then databases would be receiving thousands or maybe hundreds of thousands of requests for write. So we don't want them to get lost or get any corruption. So the process which happens behind the scene, and I'm giving you a high level view, the actual implementation can be vendor specific, but most vendors, what they do, when the requests come for database to writing, it doesn't directly go into disk, because disk may be not that fast as a RAM is. So what they do, they keep that data which has come up into RAM. So this is where all the transaction information, whatever write or update requests are coming in, they goes into RAM. Now you may say RAM is temporary storage. What if my machine powers off, there is some issue in my memory, then my data would be lost? So no, that is taken care. What happens similarly, along with RAM, your data also goes into something called transaction log files. And these are actual files which are created on the file system of your choice or device of your choice. And these transaction log files contains every entry, whatever is coming to it. Consider like it is a camera which is recording every person coming into the building. Every transaction, read, write, update, delete, is all being recorded into transaction log files. So these transaction log files, all my write requests are coming in, and we keep a copy here, we keep a copy here, and then asynchronously means after a while your data would be committed into the actual databases. So that is what happens at the end, that once your application has returned here memory and transaction log file has been created, we will go ahead and commit this information into your databases. Give me a minute, I have my PowerPoint just stuck. I'll fix it and get started again. Give me a minute. So yeah, this transaction log files are visible. You should be able to see them onto console or onto your files or onto your file system. Should not be a problem. But what would be the file name exactly? That will depend on the vendor to vendor kind of situation. Okay. Are we so far good?
Yeah, so I'm guessing these files are also essential to be migrated along with the data, right? These log files.
Yes, because again, I would say it depends on what kind of migrations you are doing. Let's say you have shut down your database, right? There is no transaction happening, and you are okay to have a downtime and then migrate your database. So that time probably you will not need that. Why? Because you have already shut it down. But in case your database is still active and you want to migrate it that time, then probably these transaction log files are important. Right?
Makes sense for live data.
So on the very left, you see write request. On the very right, you see the hard disk. So between the data gets into the hard disk, these are all the things happen. Now, what happens from operating system to operating system or from database to database, this log file, some vendor can say, I would create a log file up to 1 MB in size. As soon as that fills up, I will create another log file. I will create next log file every 1 MB. Some vendor may say, no, I will create log file every 75 seconds. And then this is how the log files are created. And when this data gets committed into the database, we need to also ensure that we are knowing that how many files got committed. We got 10 files created, we were able to commit 5. Fourth, fifth, sixth is waiting, seventh is waiting. So that happens through something called checkpoint file. So a checkpoint file is also there, which is like a state. Okay, I have completed migration of the file number 1, file number 2, file number 3, and that's what is kept into the checkpoint file. So that is what transaction logs are, and that allows database to perform undo or redo operations also, and it provides the audit trail of whatever actually happened with your database. So that's how all these things happen.
So Ashish, I just had a question. So in case there's like a disruption which happens in network connectivity, right? So this checkpoint file is the one which will be actually used, right, to go back to where, so the whole migration doesn't have to restart. So it will capture the last point. Is that where this will be used?
This is not the migrations. This is not the migration file. This is the traditional file which every database would have. Whether you are migrating or not, that's a different story. Every database works like this: store data into the RAM, put it into a transaction log file, commit into the disk, and then keep a transaction information, how many files got committed and how many are still waiting. So it has nothing to do with migration. It is a native database technology.
Okay, got it.
One more thing which is very important when we perform migration, and this will also come handy when you are performing live migration or when you want to keep transaction running at both places, that is called CDC, that is called change data capture. Some people also call it cyclic data capture, but it is a technology to facilitate all these backup and replication tasks of databases. So it is a specific technology that recognizes tags and defines all the data changes which are happening into the database. So whatever requests are coming in, not just write, read request, update request, insert request, we would capture it into a CDC platform. And implementation will depend from vendor to vendor. Like Microsoft may call it shadow copies, maybe Oracle calls it something else, maybe MySQL calls it something else. So that's all will be done by this. So CDK looks for changes in database, and when found, it records it. This record may be stored either in the same database or externally. So look at it now. Any changes which are happening are going into CDC. So if I'm a backup software, I can go into the CDC file and identify, okay, what changes happened? Let me only capture that information. Whatever has not changed, they need to capture it because I already done that. So that's what is CDC service allowing you to do. And CDC basically captures each database engine to specific configuration, and its implementation will be depending on databases to databases. But something which we call them is row level binary logging is required, or maybe you need to have some primary keys into the database. So that happens. And I would send you a blog post from a open source website or from a third party, which talks a little bit more on the CDC, that how CDC happens, what it tracks, and what kind of information is captured on that. So it has a very pictorial representation of what transaction logs are and how the tracks happen. So any data modification type of thing, insert, update, delete, they will be going through transaction log. From transaction log, CDC is there, and then we are able to track, okay, through CDC what actual transaction has been performed on the database. So these are the two concepts. One is transaction log, and second is what is CDC are really important if you want to be sure about your database migrating properly. So that is the basics concept, but let's go ahead and now we can move forward to the actual database migration service. Are we good so far?
Yeah, so I that clarified that the CRUD operations, basically, that's what is captured, right? The create, read, update, delete. Okay. And I'm guessing a DMS also must be using CDC for your live migrations as well. Is that so?
Yeah, so these native technologies are provided by vendors. So we leverage those vendor technologies along with our own technology. So we build on what exists already, and then we enhance it with our own tools. So yes, DMS helps you in that kind of cases.
Got it. Sure. So a little bit about DMS, like, can you give me an idea about what kind of source data sources can I use? I've heard that you can migrate databases, data warehouses as well, even from other cloud providers. And I was keen to know whether I can migrate even to S3, for instance. So what kind of options are possible? Just some examples if you can tell me about.
Great question. So yeah, means this is a kind of a tool which works with almost every type of databases, whether it's a data warehouse or relational or NoSQL, or even you may have data into a backup solution, we may be able to pick up from there. So there are various sources available, and then can be various target. and that is where DMS comes into picture. So we could bring data from various supported sources to various supported target. Now I don't remember every single detail because this version number and everything keeps on changing. So what I've included here, I've included a list where we discuss about what are the source which are supported by DMS service. So if you look here, there are different source databases which we support for it, and it is like Oracle on-prem, Microsoft SQL, MySQL, MariaDB, Postgres, Mongo, third-party managed database services, Amazon's own RDS databases which we can use as a source. So there's a list keeps on growing and growing. So there are so many list details of which specific version, which are specific IBM version or Oracle version which we support. So that is all for available into this list, and same goes for target 2. So if you look at the available target application, let me bring up that too. So in target also you would have the same type of sources available and target available where you can bring data from one type to another type. So as depends on what type of your source is, you would be able to bring data to different options, and it could be coming from third parties or even AWS services should not be a problem. So lots of things can be used as a target. And if you look here, Amazon S3 as is also a target. Maybe you want to bring data and keep it into S3 for compliance purposes or for backup purposes. So yes, we can help you there also. And maybe you want to bring the streaming data to Kinesis data stream, or you want to bring it to Redshift or to Neptune or Kafka. Various options are available. So it's a very popular tool for various different type of data migrations.
Okay, I get that. So I'll definitely have a look at that, and we are really keen on using managed services. So RDS is really topping our list. But before that, can you just give me a little walkthrough on the architecture of where does the DMS fit into the migration process?
Good, makes sense. So yeah, it's a pretty simple service to understand, and there are very simple steps which you need to get started with, not a complicated one. When I show technical demo later, it may be little complicatedly positioned, but it's on a high level, it's a very simple process. Let me explain that. So you would need source databases, right? And then you would have a target database. So before you start your application, you would know what is my source and where I want to bring it. Maybe my source is on-prem Oracle, and I want to bring it to Amazon Aurora, MySQL into AWS. So that will be a source and target database. Now, what we need here, at least one of the endpoint, either source or targets, must be on AWS service. So you cannot say, I have an on-prem Oracle and I want to use DMS to bring on-prem to on-prem. No. It should be at least one endpoint on AWS Cloud, whether it's a source or target. Let's say you accumulated data into Amazon RDS, and for some testing purpose, you have to bring it online to your on-prem. That also can work. So it is not just one way, it can be other way around too, but at least one of the endpoints, source or target, must be present on an AWS service. Right? Then, so we are considering source is on-prem and my target database is into AWS region. That is where we will come to DMS as a service. What would be the steps? Step one would be, we need to create something called a replication instance. So DMS is technically a software. The software has to run on some service, right? That is an Amazon EC2. So when you say, I want to deploy a replication instance, what we do actually, depending on the size you selected, how much CPU you need, how much memory and disk space you need, we create an Amazon EC2 machine, which is managed by us. And within that, we would install the DMS software. So that will be a version control software which is automatically installed once you say, I want a replication instance. So that is the first step. Set up a replication instance depending on the size you have. Second, you need to identify who is my source, who is my target. So that is called endpoint. So we create something called a source endpoint, which is pointing to the DNS name of your database with port number, username, password to connect to it. And similarly, we need to create a target endpoint, which will be pointing to our AWS database, which we have created. So this is the second step which you need. So first, set up a replication instance. Second, create and source an endpoint and target endpoint. And what is the third thing? Third thing, you have to start the migration job, right? So you can then start the migration job, and when the migration job starts, that is where this replication instance is able to move data from source to target, and that's how your application would be started. So this is what on a high level the architecture looks like.
So Ashish, is this replication instance managed by, it's going to be managed by my team, or it's going to be managed by AWS?
So see, it will be, installation will be first time will done by AWS, right? All the configuration software required or all the roles and all will be done by. But later that is your instance. So let's say you started with the t2.micro instance and it had got overwhelmed because too much data was being migrated, right? So then it
Right.
would be your responsibility to ensure that, okay, let me switch the instance to a bigger instance, right? So we do not
Got it.
look into the performance or auto scaling of it, but we give you option. Do you want to deploy it in a single AZ or multi-AZ? That makes sense, right? Because single AZ can fail and your data transfer can stop. So we want it to have multi-AZ. So that option would be visible when we go ahead with this. But yes, it would be your responsibility to see it is working and see if it is having the connectivity and all or not.
Got it. And what about data consistency? I mean, are there features in DMS which ensures that the data is valid or consistent from the source to the target? Is there some kind of checks which happens?
Exactly, it happens. Data is very important. We don't want to play around with anyone's data, right?
Right.
So there are a lot of things which you can perform as a validation, like schema testing, or you can even perform the, before even migration, you could simulate some of the stuff. So that all is possible, and I'll probably show you that when we go into demo. But yes, all these things are possible to ensure that you are confident about your data migration. So that all can be done.
Makes sense. And just now looking at the architecture diagram, I just thought about it like, what about if I want to have a live database migration? I don't really want to cut over immediately. I want minimal downtime. What are the ways in which I can, plan for this migration?
So yeah, see, it depends. Let's say you have 100 databases in your environment. Just give an example. I don't expect that all 100 databases of same criticality or
Right.
same
Absolutely.
uptime requirement, right? So you may say that, hey, some databases I can have a downtime, I can keep them down for 10 hours, 2 hours, 1 day, whatever your SLA is, and then you can use a different approach for moving them. For some, you would need a different approach for moving. So we give you those type of options available. Let me talk about some of the replication types you can select. So you could say, hey, I am done. I just want a copy of my data into cloud. I don't want to actually perform a continuous migration. So we can go ahead and say, okay, let's migrate existing data. That is what we call full load. So in full load, we perform a one-time migration. You want to create one more copy of your database in cloud, test something there, and then perform whatever. So that time you could go ahead, let me perform a full load on it. So that is what can be happening. That is one option.
Okay.
Second option, you could say, I want to migrate and keep on making changes also replicated. So what happens in this particular case, whatever you have migrated first time is there, and now after 10 minutes, one more transaction happened, we would continuously keep on migrating that transaction also. So we will keep both of them into sync, which we call full load and CDC, change data capture. So that is how we are ensuring that whatever happens in your on-prem is exactly the same thing replicated onto your cloud environment also. So that can be done with full load and CDC. So if your critical database where downtime is not there, we want minimal downtime, probably go with this approach. And then when you see both databases are in sync, that time you could go ahead and then perform the cutover of your databases.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And one more option is there. So what may happen, let's say you somehow able to get your data in cloud. Maybe you haven't used DMS, you use some third-party mechanism or tools, and through that, you are able to bring your data into cloud. Fine. Now what you can do, you could go ahead and then perform replication of changes only. So I today took a backup, restored into cloud. This process took 10 days. Now I want to only replicate the changes worth the 10 days which happened on-prem. So we can replicate changes only, not the whole database again. So these are the 3 replication types which we support when you start your DMS migration jobs.
Makes sense. So I guess the third type would be good if I have like a development environment or a testing environment, and I keep wanting to mirror my production and test. I think I could use the third option, right? That looks like a good option for that.
Yeah, means one use case I could think of, let's say you migrated your data to cloud. Now in cloud, you want to perform some testing, but you don't want that data to get updated by the existing transaction. So it's like you cut off, perform testing on your cloud environment. Once you are happy, testing data is removed, and now we migrate only the changes which happened while we were doing the testing. So that is how we should be able to use these features.
Got it. Makes sense. Right.
Great.
So is it possible for you to give me probably a little demo of how this works? Would be keen to have a look.
So seeing is believing, right? So let's go ahead and talk about demo. So so there is a workshop which I am picking up, and we will share link to the audience who are looking for. So users have here an option where we are using a SQL Server or Amazon RDS database or Oracle database, and we can move it to a Amazon managed SQL Server or Target RDS SQL Server. So this is a workshop which I will be sharing link, and in that lots and lots of options are there. So we will talk about that. So let me go into the console of it and show you some of the settings associated with that. So give me a minute. I'll bring up some information or the screen, and we will get started from there.
Sure.
So, okay, I'm trying to connect to my application. I think it got timed out. So let me connect again. So what we have here is a sample database, and through that database, we will perform the migration. So this database is installed on EC2. Obviously, we do not have the on-prem environment, so we are just simulating the environment which may be there for your on-prem. So simulating through an Amazon EC2 instance, and on that EC2 instance, we have installed the required software. Let me bring up the database migration workshop link here also to explain you something. So you would be able to deploy this on your own account, regular AWS account. There are details associated, and there is information what cloud formation you need and all. So all is there. And then you would be going ahead and setting up your source. So we have two databases. One is Oracle, one is SQL, that is installed on an Amazon EC2 instance. Let me quickly show that to you. So here we have this particular database. Give me a minute. My screen is slower than what I'm talking to, so give me a minute, I'll figure that out. Yep. So here, if you look here, this one is an Amazon EC2 machine, and in that we have installed Oracle database. This is the Oracle SQL developer tool through which I can see. So this is an Oracle database, and then we have this sample DMS database created here. These are the details of this database, as you could see. So this is we will use as a source, and we will migrate this to the cloud environment. So that is pretty easy job. I'll explain details about it, and then we'll move forward with what needs to be done on that. So this is an EC2 machine on which we have databases installed, and through that we would perform the migrations associated with it. Let's see. So what we need here, we need to have some configuration done on our databases before the actual migration happens. Let me walk you through the process of preparing your database for getting migrated. So if you look here, we have given you some details on what needs to be done on your source database for migration. So we are connecting here to the database, and then we are running some commands on that. We are creating some sample databases on that. We are creating some user on that so that we can perform the migration. We have permission. We are giving some permission to our DMS user, as you see. And once this is done, we should be ready for migration. Right. So process is pretty simple. Let me explain it again into console, that how it will look like. Let me go back to the DMS console here. This is all the setting which I've mentioned already into your workshop studio. So you should be able to perform all these things. Should not be a problem at all on that. So here in this console, I am going to service called DMS. And in that, I should be able to select a source endpoint, and I should be able to select a target endpoint to get started. And then we will create a replication instance. Now, the workshop still uses some old UI screenshots. So be aware, here is an option which says new navigation disabled. Now you would be able to see exactly same thing which is mentioned into the workshop. So Documentation didn't got updated, but the UI got updated. So if you look here, this is where we would start. We would first create a replication instance. So replication instance is nothing but a EC2 machine on which the required configuration is already there. So we select what type of instance you need. These are different type of instances, as you could see. Select whatever works best for you. It is a EC2, so it has to live into an Amazon VPC. We can select that. Here at the bottom, you have option for selecting replication, subnet, VPC setting. And I was saying to you that we can make it highly available also. So we could go ahead and say, okay, I want to deploy it in a single AZ, or I want to deploy it into a multi-AZ. So that is my decision to ensure where I want to keep this replication instance ready. Is this thing clear, Parna, so far?
Yeah, it is clear. And there's an option even to encrypt the data in the storage of this replication, because it's sensitive data.
See, if it is coming to AWS, then you can leverage the native services like KMS for it, right? You can have all these log into CloudWatch log also. So all these CloudTrail, CloudWatch, and then your KMS services will all be there, which you could specify. You can obviously you may not want to keep it publicly accessible, so just remove that setting. Then you select VPC and security group setting. You have KMS information. You can perform some maintenance window on that. So as it is becoming a native AWS replicated database now, we all have the setting which you would be expecting for any traditional AWS databases. So that is what we can get started.
Got it.
So that's one. Now, once my replication instance is ready, so what I have here, I'm not creating it because the replication instance takes a little time to get ready. But what I already have this replication instance ready. If you look here, this is a C6i extra large instance. It is running 3.5.3. That is a DMS version. So DMS is a software that is running 3.5.31, and it is available on this private IP address and all. So once my instance is ready, what you will be doing, you would be needing an endpoint to be created. What is an endpoint? Endpoint is the source from
a little bit. Can you zoom in a little bit?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah. Let me know if it is visible better now.
Yeah, it's better now. Yeah.
Good. So here what we create an endpoint. Endpoint is basically a DNS name which we want to connect to. So there is a source option and there is a target endpoint. Now, you may also swap it, right? You may say, okay, this is source first time and then it will be target. And then you can say now it will be source and then it will become target otherwise. So that you have to specify, you give it a name. Let's say I call it my on-prem Oracle. And then I have a source engine to select here. Whatever engines are supported, they are all available here. So let's say I selected that my engine here is Oracle. Then I have to specify some information about it. If there is a secret manager available, if there is a username password which you want to apply. So I have to provide a server name, which port number my database is running, what is my username, what is my password, and then I have to provide some more detail, and I have option here to test the connection. So my source would be ready, and then I would have the same setting applied for the target also.
Yeah, so I saw secrets manager, that's for the credentials, right? For my source database, so I can use that as well. Is that for that reason?
Yeah. So yeah, means that's the correct reason. So what you could have, instead of somebody manually maintaining and typing username and password, right, at use secrets manager, it is a much audited and much secure way of doing things. So we have integration options for secrets manager also. So as you could see, you could use secrets manager, or if you already have a Kerberos authentication for your database, you could use that too. If that doesn't work out, go ahead and provide username and password manually. So both options are there, multiple options, so that you select what works best for you.
Makes sense. Yeah, please go ahead.
So that you would create as an endpoint, and then once your both endpoints are ready, once your source and database endpoint are ready, then what we create here, we create something called migration task. So in this migration task, what you have to do, once your basic setup is done, endpoint is ready, so you select which specific replication instance you would use, you specify which type of source databases, you specify what your target database you want, and then you specify type of migration. Why migrate data from source to target once, I was mentioning that, or I want to migrate it and keep on replicating also, so that changes are also replicated, or I want to migrate data from source to target from now or at specified milestone. So this is what the three options which I explained you, what we can use for replication types on that.
Got it.
And then how long do you intend to continue replication from source to target? So you could specify a time period, maybe for limited time only, maybe for indefinitely. So it is decision yours. And then you could configure some more settings associated with it, right? Whether you want CTC or not, you want target table preparation mode or not. We will first perform preparation. If you're in large objects, what to need to be that? What should be the maximum size you would allow for this large object? Will you want data validation? Like you were saying, integrity of data is very important, so we can perform data integration validity also. So validate with data migration, validate without data migration. We can check CloudWatch log, we can optimize it to run on batch, and then more advanced settings are there where you can control table level information, like what you specify, historical history time slot, create control table for target schema. So lot many options are there. And then see this one, you can even perform a pre-migration assessment. So before we click button and start duplicating all the data, I want to ensure everything is as expected. So we can perform pre-migration assessment too. And then you could migration automatically on create. We can start migration, or I can schedule it for a time when my database is less busy, and that time only I start the migration job. So it's a pretty robust framework to control all the migration setting of your databases. And then you should be able to create the job, and your job would be started based on whenever you want to complete that job. So it takes time to replicate these things. So what I have done, I've captured some screenshots that how it looks. I'll quickly show you to that. So that will be easy for you to relate to how these particular screen looks like when your replication job finishes. Give me a minute. I'll bring that up, and that should give you an idea on what happens when your replication actually finishes. Let me bring that up now. So see this one. So this is my source was Aurora MySQL, source to Aurora MySQL target. It started running. It completed 58%. That I captured a screenshot. And then once it completed 100%, if you see, load complete and replication ongoing. So first load done, and we are still monitoring your source database. Any changes which happen, we'll bring it up and we'll position it again into your target database. So that's how we should be able to perform all these things. Should not be a problem at all. So that's what a task completion would look like. Does it make sense?
So all this monitoring, you can do it from the DMS console, and similarly, can we have access to some metrics and all in CloudWatch as well? Is it all built into DMS or?
Exactly, it is same thing. So DMS publishes its information into CloudWatch, CloudTrail. You want notification to be done. You want some alert to be created based on that. So that is all the integration possible. Should not be a problem. It's a native.
So I can check the health of the replication instance also,
exactly.
I guess, just like a EC2 instance.
Yeah, it is EC2, right? So we should be able to see its utilization when we need to add more instances and all. So those all things are there.
Makes sense. So that's great. But now I was just wondering, like, we just had one replication instance. What if I want to scale out, and I would have to manually go and create another replication instance? Can this all happen automatically? Yeah. Is there any option?
We
for
heard
that?
you. It's a common thing. See, I may not know, maybe I'm a database admin, but I do not know about this particular database. So how big my instance should be? I don't want to spend unnecessary money and create a bigger instance and then use only 5% of that. So to situations like that, we have come up with something called DMS serverless. So what happens in this case of DMS serverless, we go ahead and set up a serverless instance for you. Means we manage the instance. You do not have to say, I need an instance and this and that. You just specify the profile information, and serverless allows you to automatically provision, scale, high availability, pay per use billing type of stuff. So maybe your instance is running for 10 hours, but replication finished in 3 hours only. Why I should pay for it? So that is where DMS serverless comes into picture. So all the things of scaling it out, managing it, setting up the threshold for scaling out, scaling in is all taken care by us, so that you don't have to worry about at all anything. We take care of everything through DMS serverless. So that is what we recommend for some cases where you should use for serverless or not.
Great. So this was perfect. The only thing I was concerned about, at no point did I see any mention about schema conversion when if it's a heterogeneous migration, for instance. So does that happen all automatically? Because I had recently read a blog from AWS where it said that DMS uses GenAI also for the schema conversion. So
exactly. So yeah, that is also one of the possibilities. Yes, exactly. So if I show you the workshop link again, then there is a detail about what is expected into this particular workshop. Give me a minute. So here, if you look here, then you can select target, and here is an advanced schema conversion, generative AI schema conversion. So if somebody keeps on going or forward, if you want, you could just select and finish your DMS thing here. But if you want further to go forward, you could go ahead and use these particular details also, like advanced schema conversion, generative
Okay,
AI
so it's an
options, and
opt-in,
what are there
Ashish.
from that.
You don't have to go for it. Okay.
No, it depends. See, if it is a homogeneous migration, probably you will not need schema changes. But if it is a
Right.
heterogeneous migration, you would need schema changes to be done. So that is an important aspect.
No, I meant for the Gen AI part, that's an opt-in option, right?
Yeah, it's not mandatory that everyone has to use it. No.
Right. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So that is there. And let's say if I go ahead and talk a little bit more on that. So how about heterogeneous database migration, as we were talking about? So yes, there are options available, but what we need now, we need to focus also on something called schema conversion tool, which is a software allows you to perform the schema conversion.
Okay. So I'm guessing the schema conversion tool is meant for more complex conversions, schema conversions, and complex data types, which natively DMS does not handle. Is it for that?
Yes, agree on that to some extent, because even you can use it for some small changes also. Let's say you're migrating, right? So your database already accumulated a lot of technical debt, and that is not required to be migrated. So why I should go ahead with exact same migration? Maybe it is same homogeneous migration, but I still want to optimize my schema. So that time also you can use schema conversion tool. But yeah, most commonly people do it when it is completely a different engine. Let's say you're coming from Oracle to Microsoft SQL, or you have Postgres and you are coming to DynamoDB and those type of stuff. That is where you would be using a schema conversion tool. So it's an interesting tool which can help you. So schema conversion tool helps you in these kind of situations.
Got it. And does it help with the complete conversion, or are there instances where it's unable to convert certain database objects? In that case, is there some kind of a manual intervention we need to do as well?
Yeah, I mean, we wish everything could be automated 100%, and Gen AI helps a lot in that. But there are some nuances which we need to have manual intervention, or what we call human in the loop. That kind of thing is there. So schema conversion is possible. So what we do, we go through one pass. You have option to perform a schema conversion checks before, and through that we identify, okay, 90% of the things we would be able to do on our own automatically. We don't need you to be stepping in. 10% or some objects are there where you have to step in. So we'll highlight those information that, hey, these are the places where you may struggle, and we give you step-by-step information what needs to be done. You select those steps, apply it, and we will then perform the schema migration for you also. So we help you in all the phases. Very rare scenarios, something needs to be manually done, but I would say 95% to 97% things are taken care by this particular tool.
I get it. So I've got some newbies in my team. So if you could help explain what exactly is this schema conversion process to them.
Exactly. Yeah, why not? So let me give an analogy, and probably everyone would understand and relate to it. Probably you've been into a situation like this, right? So we still want to use electricity, but now I am traveling to Europe and I have this kind of a plug which I cannot connect. Or if I have a problem when I travel to India, which I'm going next month, I would have to carry a adapter with me, which will help me with the schema conversion. Now, this is not a very complicated thing. Anyone can use it, but consider about a different situation. Let's take an example of a house. So let's say you are living in an apartment with your family, and you have kids' room, you have a study room, and you have set up where the sofa would be, where your TV would be, and all these things. And now from this, you are migrating to a 2-floor apartment or 2-floor house, first floor and second floor. Now you need to decide beforehand where these stuff will go, where you will keep sofa, where the kid 1 will sleep, where kid 2 would be, where would be your study desk, where you would be a work desk, where you would have a kitchen utensil stored, where you would have your outhouse information data stored. So that you have to plan. So this is not a very straightforward like plugging something. You need to sit with your family and then decide, okay, this room is like this, I need something which is very suitable to you, probably kids room would be this one, and then there would be something else which will be used for storage or something else. So this is where you need to plan and then move forward. So that's where your situations are like this. And same applies for database schema also, right? So schema is basically the structure on which your data is there, primary keys, and then stored procedures are there. There are views inside. There are things like you have selected tables, you have stored some information. So that all is your schema, and that is where we have to use a schema conversion tool for it. So schema represents all your data, and what happens to schema conversion tool, you go ahead and then install this tool on any of the machines. It would be Windows or Linux, we support both. And then what we do from here, we are able to read your source information, understand what your schema is, and then perform all the checks, give you an option that how much we can automatically perform as a validation, and then apply out onto your target database. So your automated and manual changes are done here, and then we apply the schema to the target database. Now people get confused here, and I want to explain it, Parna, here. So schema conversion is just setting up the structure, but it is not moving the data. Get my point? So you decided room 1 stuff will go into room 3 of the new house, but you still have to move the stuff. So that's where you would first perform the schema conversion, and then you will perform the database migration, so that DMS will come again into picture. So if it is homogeneous migration, DMS will take care of everything for you. Heterogeneous migration, you would perform a schema conversion, and through schema conversion you should be able to then utilize your target database. After schema is converted, you will then move data using your data migration service. That's how it would work.
Got it. And I can see that you mentioned that there's an assessment report also. So if any kind of a conversion did not take place, or it could not do it, I think that's where it's going to highlight this.
Yep, so it will be a detailed report, and let me see if I can pull something. I did not have time to show you that, but AWS schema conversion report, if I search on internet, there should be something. So it should be able to tell you exactly how much percentage we are able to do properly, how much is requiring your manual changes and all. So yes, that all can be done and help you with that. Let me bring that up information here.
All right. And just correct me if I'm wrong. I guess the schema conversion tool also helps with the conversion for the application SQL code also. Does it help with that too?
Exactly. So yeah, means I'll send you the documentation link, and it shows that what happens and what are the nuances it is able to pick up, what kind of things it can fix, what recommendation it has. Let's say in like Oracle has read-only views, but you are going to MySQL, maybe there is no read-only views. So what you will do in that case is, so we perform this assessment report. See, this is a report summary, and through that we checked all these things. So these are all good. Once the screen is good, this is where I would need to perform some manual modifications on that. So we give you a detailed report of everything which needs to be done, all the information that what you could do, what are the steps around it. So database in memory feature, what is the description, license evaluation, support evaluation, all of this we perform when you perform the schema migration for us. So yes, that will be all done by this. See this one. So here schema 100%, no problem. Tables, we have few object with complex actions which are required, object with medium complexity actions required, right? So we bifurcate it. So these are all, we don't have any problem with the type. In sequence, we have around 50% going well. Schema is this, and then XML schema collection, we have to perform something here. So we provide you step-by-step instructions also to move forward with the schema conversion.
That's really promising. So this is really great. The only concern I was having was I would have to install this schema conversion tool on my source database server, right? But we have some compliance requirements where we cannot just install any software there. So is there any workaround for that?
Yeah, that's a new options available, which we have a schema conversion built into DMS itself. So right now, schema conversion is a software which you download from AWS website and install it on a machine of your choice. That may be okay for a small environment, but for compliance reason, hey, I don't want to play with the data on my laptop personal. There are restrictions. I can't do all these things on my own databases. So instead of having that tool installed, what you could do, you could go ahead and use DMS feature also, which is called DMS schema conversion. It is still relatively new, so it may not have all the exact same features, but I would say it is around 70 to 80% feature of traditional SCT tool is covered by the DMS service also. So if you look here, there is no laptop. Your data center, we read schema within AWS region. We create an instance to perform all the migration. We provide data provider from source, data provider to target. We perform schema conversion, and DMS can perform replication too. So it can become one-stop shop for you to perform everything from schema conversion up to the actual migration. Should not be a problem.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I think I've got a good idea of the process now. Thanks, Ashish, for that.
That makes sense. So yeah, database migrations are tricky. It is not a straightforward like moving a single EC2 machine, because there are so many nuances associated with it. But there are tools, there are programs, there are technologies available to help you out with all this information. And if you look at the slide, I have included this globe icon, which is a link for additional information. So obviously we have limit of time. We could not cover everything, but we have created lots and lots of stuff here as a link so that you can go ahead and see that information there. So if I revisit the slide here, see this. So you can use application discovery service for assessing what is there. Then you can use migration conversion, schema conversion also is there, and then you can use DMS. So it depends on what you are actually looking for. So that's what I wanted to cover, and hopefully this has given some idea. And now probably we have time for our behavioral track. So keep your questions coming, and we will try to answer as much as we can. But hope everyone enjoyed, and any feedback is there, let us know into Discord, LinkedIn, or email, so that we would be able to improve our sessions as we move forward. Thank you, Parna.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And let me now bring Prasad to stage. Hey, Prasad, let us know what we are going to discuss today for behavioral track.
No, for behavioral track, it will be Jeff and Bhaskar. They'll be discussing about the target architectures, POCs, and how to actually earn the trusted advisor status, right? That's the main thing. How we can earn customer, advisory status. Before coming to that, a great session, Ashish and Parna. There were too many questions. I was trying to answer as many as I can, but there were too many.
Yeah, I could see I could not focus on questions this time because there were so many of them.
There were so many of them. Probably what we can do is in the resources section, again, we can create a full list of resources, also including for the storage part, before going to the...
I'll also do one thing which just came to my mind. Like, I have this all explained into my migration training on Udemy. So I'll make those sections available as a preview. So you don't have to buy the training, but you can still go ahead and check all this thing into action, like schema conversion and migration, all should be here, should not be a problem.
That's amazing. Cool. So let's get the folks who will be doing the action.
Jeff and Bhaskar to the stage. I'll drop off. Prasad, you carry on.
Sure. Hey, Jeff. Hey, Bhaskar.
Good.
I'll leave the floor for you folks.
Sure.
You guys can carry on.
Sure. Can you turn on the screen share for me?
Yes, I'll do that. Your screen. Yes, let me do that. Awesome. Go for it.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining our behavioral track today. Myself and Bhaskar are going to be going over how to present target architectures to your customers or your stakeholders within your organization. This will be building upon the work that Nabil and Parna did last week around, doing a workload discovery, which kind of is the first step, and the second step would be actually going through what the target architectures and kind of showing that. This is something that we do an awful lot in our role, and it really comes down to how you're making sure you're communicating that architecture to the stakeholders you have there across the different kind of viewpoints that they're going to be interested in. one, you need to kind of think about the approach to the meeting that you're going to be having, where you're going to be presenting that target architecture. And over the next couple of weeks, we'll get in a little more detail on these things. So there's really kind of 4 things you need to be thinking about as you're going into that meeting. First, that architecture needs to be working backwards from the outcomes, specifically the business outcomes that you're trying to achieve. Don't just jump right in and say, here's the solution. Remember, you got to kind of work backwards from what the outcome is. The architecture should be supporting that. Know your audience before you go into the meeting. While it is a target architectural presentation, there are likely to be people in there who aren't super technical sometimes, application owners, for instance, possibly budgetary owners. So make sure you have something for all of them. Be concise, be on time, meaning understand what you're presenting, the timing necessary for that presentation. You want to kind of avoid that, like rushing through those last 3 slides and say, oh, I just got to get these 3 things in and they're really important, then no one's listening. And finally, conclude with actions. There should be some very specific things you're asking your audience to do now that you've kind of designed the solution for them and how you want to kind of move forward with it. We're going to go through a scenario here of an actual meeting. I'll be playing the solution architect presenting this target architecture to the stakeholder group, and Bhaskar will be playing the stakeholder group. And in this group, he'll kind of be playing a mixture role of, engineer, solution architect on the application team side, security architect, business application owner, development manager, budgetary owner. So kind of be like a mixture of people kind of in the room, and you'll see that he's going to have some questions from different perspectives on things and how I'll be handling that. Bhaskar, you ready to go?
Yep, let's go.
All right. Bhaskar, thanks so much for joining me today. Looking forward to this opportunity to walk you through the target architecture that I designed for the particular business application and business capabilities that you're looking for. Just want to kind of quickly go over the agenda that we'll be having today. First, we'll kind of go over the objectives we had from the previous meeting. We'll talk about the included cloud services in this architecture, since it'll be representing some new things for you, your organization, your team. I'll introduce you to the architecture itself, explain it, explain how it works, and explain how it connects to your particular scenario. I'll give you a little bit of a demonstration of how I went about building this for you. I think it's important to kind of show you the cost estimates so you can kind of see what it looks like in current state and future state. And then finally, we'll conclude with some next steps that we could work on together.
Sure.
Sound like a good agenda?
Definitely.
Okay. Bhaskar, so, one of the things that, we heard last week when we were doing the discovery with you is, 6 areas of importance to you from a business perspective that you're looking for, kind of the outcomes and objectives as we go forward with this. When you're looking for greater scalability, isolation, you want to gain agility in how you're releasing the software. You're looking to also increase the speed at which you're building, developing, and releasing software. You mentioned how you're looking for a little bit of like where you could kind of innovate with your teams and how they're looking to create these solutions. And lastly, you said you want to make sure that it is cost effective. Does that sound like I captured everything accurately from our previous meetings?
Yeah, like majority of the things like Jeff, you captured. Thanks for that. But however, I just wanted to add one point. So previously, in recent history, we had some sort of outage just because probably our application was not resilient enough, right, to handle the outage and kind of things. So along with all these objectives, it would be very great if we can also consider the resiliency of the application and the infrastructure along with it. That will help us. We really want to improve on the resiliency posture of our org.
I got you. Well, I'm sorry to hear about the outage that you have. And yes, one of those things is as we look to design things, we're always kind of thinking about, security, and I'll just kind of say resilience as, non-negotiable type of things. So I'll kind of explain to you how that's handled in that architecture. And, if that doesn't kind of meet the requirements, maybe we'll have to think about it a little bit more. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Sure.
First, I just want to kind of introduce you to a few things that are going to be, new to the team here in terms of what's going to be included in this proposal that we're making. And there's kind of really 4 elements, and they touch on different things that you're looking for. First, we're going to be introducing what we call API gateway. We learned that as your company's expanding, that you want to take more of an API product-centric view of your new capabilities, and having this and designing with an API spec first will kind of give you that ability to host APIs as products and make them consumable both internally and externally. Lambda kind of has that compute capability for you. I know you're very comfortable today using EC2 and running your Java applications there. I want to kind of introduce this idea of using a serverless capability to do that. Continuing on that serverless capability, DynamoDB as a NoSQL database. I know you guys do a lot with MySQL and RDS, and very comfortable with relational. I think because of the nature of this type of application and the quick response time you're looking for, I think Dynamo would kind of fit nicely from that. And then finally, Amazon Q is an AI coding assistant, agentic tool that can, work with your developers kind of as like that, almost like an AI agent as a pair programmer to help them ideate through things and develop code and do coding faster, which can kind of, help you in that innovation side of things.
Okay.
Any questions on these before we?
Yes, definitely, Jeff. I mean, as you already know, we are heavily using Java, and we want to continue on that, right? And right now, you accurately articulated that yes, we want to go for API first approach. However, right now also we are leveraging API, but we are hosting it on EC2. Right.
Mhm.
And we right now what I can see all these services, API gateway, Lambda. So you mentioned these are serverless. So can you just double click on it? And because just it's very new for us, it's very new space for us as in serverless. And if you can also emphasize upon why you think it would be important for us.
Yeah, good question. And you're right, serverless is a new concept for your organization. If you kind of think about it with what you're doing with your current world with EC2s, while they're virtual servers and we appreciate the business there, they do kind of operate on more of a provisioned, kind of capacity manner. So with the serverless things that we're talking about here, both Gateway, Lambda, and Dynamo, they operate and they charge you on what we call like a usage criteria versus a provisioned criteria. So if you think about like the lambdas, which would be kind of like the business code behind those APIs, they would be active and running only at the time that it's kind of processing that particular business transaction, and then it would, in essence, kind of shut down afterwards. Similarly, with Dynamo, it's only active when it's writing or reading or making updates. Otherwise, it's idle. And during those idle times, you're not getting charged. Now, additionally, AWS manages things for you, such as scaling and some resiliency and redundancy capabilities on those things. So you're gaining some capabilities that kind of align to what you were mentioning before. How you've had some, resilient challenges with some of your stuff right now, and you're gaining some cost efficiencies in terms of these only when they're using, kind of like you only have to pay for electricity when you turn the switch on. It's a similar concept here.
Oh, okay. So, Jeff, am I understanding it right that these serverless services will not only help us to take care of take care of the scaling without we doing it manually every time, just like we do right now, but it may also help us in terms of cost optimization, which generally we observe that we over provision the resources in terms of current setup. Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, and I'll connect that for you a little bit when we, in later section of this talk today. I did do some cost analysis for you specifically on that, so we can talk about that there.
Oh, sure.
All right. I just like to kind of make sure I kind of ground everybody on where we are before I kind of introduce the new architecture. So, your existing application, 3-tier, you got your web application as kind of the static files. You do have a load balancer, which is directing traffic across your distributed EC2 environments, all across 2 different availability zones there. And then, of course, your database. Now, that's kind of, you understand that. I know that this is something you have. So I'll kind of talk you through some of the changes that we're proposing here. So, first, we're going to be following what we call a strangler fig pattern here. And strangler fig pattern, for everyone's kind of understanding, it's when we're taking a capability out of like an existing system. Like in this case, we're going to be taking like the shopping basket capability out, because you said that was kind of the most important thing to be focusing on right now. And then we rebuild that capability, in a new technology stack that gives you the same business capability with enhancements in terms of new functionality that you're looking for. And we put that behind the load balancer here so that it's unknown to the application up top and to the user that they're consuming this new capability through a new pathway here. Now, there's a couple things that we did. First, we did create this new database store here in DynamoDB that's going to host your, the persistence layer for that basket. We did implement the business capability for handling the transactions against that basket here with that new Lambda capability. And we put that all behind the new API gateway, which I was mentioning before, which will kind of route the traffic. And in the little demo that we built, we kind of introduced using Amazon Q to kind of help us with, giving it some prompts that could kind of aid us in how we develop and also guide us in terms of how to best use the AWS services from a well-architected manner here. Make sense so far?
Yes, just one question I have over here, Jeff. So let's say, for example, I mean, this is great. I mean, what I can see, but let's say, because of some unknown issue, if you have to go back, to the existing, piece of the architecture, we will be able to go back, right? I mean, there will be no impediment into that.
Yes. Yeah. So, we can implement this in kind of like a blue-green type of manner or a green type of manner. We could implement this down here and we could redirect traffic to it, on by region or by user or something like that. So you could kind of slowly introduce things here without actually having to shut down the old basket. So you could have some traffic to the old, some traffic to the new. And then also what we could do is, let's say something were catastrophic to happen down here. We could just, change the route and have everything go back to that. So it does give you that ability to, introduce the new, not completely remove the old, and kind of give you that ability to direct traffic to the new or direct traffic back to the old if you were to have to do something like that.
Great.
That's great. The one other thing I'm going to mention here is, I know that you guys have a lot of investment in your people skills, particularly around, some of the technology stacks that you use. Dynamo, I can appreciate that NoSQL would be a little bit new for this organization. And there's certain things we can work on together to kind of help ease that transition. I do want to mention, Lambda does support as first class Java. So all of the Java, skills that your team has developed will still be, very used as we're building that out here. So there's one part of it that's going to be new from a technology standpoint, and one part that we're reusing skills from your team.
Yeah, because Jeff, as you observe, so we have mix of crowd in our team. So a couple of folks are newbie and a couple of folks are have been working on the existing architectures, and they're very good because they have worked in the existing architecture, and along with the AWS services that we consume, they work for a considerable time. So I'm just worried that probably how actually this learning curve would be for our organization, right? I mean, it shouldn't be an impediment in according to go ahead and adopt and explore all these things.
Right, right. And obviously, you can appreciate this would be a new pattern for your organization. And, so you might, be honest, you might see a little bit of, velocity slow down and maybe the first couple sprints in the program increment as they adjust to this. Though I think
Yeah.
what you'll see is that investment will recoup itself later as they get, more used to this pattern, and then they will be developing faster because this architecture allows them to implement changes independently of each other versus before everything was kind of packaged in that monolith and deployed together.
Okay. Okay. So the another serverless service which you mentioned, which is Amazon Q. So will that be also helpful for my team to probably leverage that and boost their productivity?
Yeah, so there's a couple things there. So one, Q is trained. It's based upon industry language models, and then it's also
Oh,
trained with knowledge from AWS best practices and AWS documentation. So kind of think of it as like this agent that can help, right there in the development tool with your developers, kind of answering questions on how to use services, looking stuff up for them, giving them guidance on how to use a service where they don't have to go search through documentation. And then with additional prompting, they can even, have it, design and develop some of the, the code to kind of assist them in how to use some of those services. So it can in essence accelerate their adoption of new technology and reduce some of the risk because they can be doing this with the guidance of a tool that's helping them adhere to AWS's well architected principles.
got it. Got it. Great.
One of the things that I always kind of think it's important to do is make sure everyone understands that as we're designing this architecture, that it isn't simply about introducing new technology. It's also about how is this technology really kind of enabling the outcomes that you're looking for. So first, in terms of the scalability, I mentioned those serverless capabilities here. So like Gateway, Lambda, Dynamo, since they're serverless and AWS is kind of managing this for you, we're able to scale up and scale down depending upon the workload that's coming our way. So it gives you that without you having to manage it. From the isolation perspective, load balancer and Lambda, you can have separate deployments, separate configuration routes that can allow you to have different applications because we could kind of take this pattern here and start to build out, more and more and more, and we'll have that isolation across the application boundaries. And that kind of leads into some of the, gaining the agility here in terms of, releasing things quicker, with Gateway, the load balancer, Dynamo, and even Lambda, I'd say. I don't know why I went backwards. Having smaller units of code, smaller units of databases allows us to have development teams that can work in shorter increments, sometimes even have like teams or micro teams working on things and deploying things quicker, which really aids in that speed of development. Innovation here, I mentioned that, Amazon Q can really help you as you're thinking about building new things with people who are new to maybe building those new things. Q can help with that. You can also even interact with it to start to think about how you might envision net new capabilities for your application. And then the cost effectiveness here, with things like Dynamo, Lambda, those things run serverless, you're going to get kind of the best bang for the buck or value out of this architecture. And you can even start to kind of trace that back to what is it costing you kind of per transaction, back up to your business transaction that it's supporting, and start to see, oh, as my volume goes up, my costs go up, and I can relate those easily together to each other. And as you start to have things where, hey, we spent a lot of money this past month on Lambda and Dynamo, it's like, okay, but that was because we had a bunch of marketing that was creating sale opportunities. So it was driving up sales. So it's going to be very relatable to each other, which I know in today's world, it's kind of not as easy to understand kind of the correlation behind some of the, the business world, what's happening in terms of some of the marketing campaigns and how it's affecting the volume.
Great. Great. That sounds interesting to me, Jeff. That this architecture will allow us, even there are certain spikes in the cost, so we would be able to go ahead and we would be able to track that down, linking to the business KPIs and why it has happened, why this cost has been surged up. Yeah, that sounds interesting.
So I'll go a little bit into the demonstration here to kind of show you how it was built, kind of look like what's behind the scenes of it a little bit. I know you're familiar with the existing application on EC2 and MySQL. Now, kind of getting back to the first thing, I did here is you have this, basket here as a table in MySQL. So what I did is I extracted that out kind of from a schema and then converted it to NoSQL and implemented that over here in DynamoDB. And you can see that. What I later then did is I took the shopping basket logic, kind of extracted it out of there. And with the help of Q and some prompting, I worked to build that as a Lambda function there. And this was really great because it allowed me to reuse the code, and it'll allow your team to reuse code and reuse the skills they have in Java. And then kind of on that API side of things, this is where that triangular fig pattern really kind of comes into play and helps us out a lot. So for some of the existing transactions here, there's going to be paths in the API that will still route out to the old monolith application, because we're still keeping that around for other things. However, what I did is I adjusted the path for adjusted the route for this particular function, the basket, that would go over to this new Lambda function that I created the previous step. So now I'm able to kind of have the old blend with the new and have that be transparent to the people, using the application themselves.
Yeah. So Jeff, just one question. I see in the demo, I can see the AWS console snips. However, right now we are we do have IAC posture. IAC in the sense infrastructure as a code posture, and we are also moving towards that. And obviously to tighten our security and take care of the infrastructure drifts and whatnot. So as a part of our organization standard, I think probably we will not be able to give the console access to all of the developers in the team. So what can be done about that?
Yeah, so obviously for demonstration purposes here, I was doing things in the console. We'll work with your team, and they're already very comfortable with the development tools that they use, such as VS Code and the code pipelines that you have there. What we'll be doing here is we'd be introducing into their world, how would they be setting up the gateway, deploying the Lambda and setting up DynamoDB, in Terraform or CloudFormation, and then kind of packaging that through, in the build process. So you're right, you wouldn't be giving them console access. However, through Terraform or CloudFormation, they could be building all of these infrastructure as code assets. So all this would be kind of managed as code in your typical GitHub and kind of code pipelines that you have.
Oh, great. So we despite going serverless, we would be able to maintain our IAC posture, and we can deploy everything programmatically, right?
Yes,
great.
Absolutely.
Great.
All right. Wanted to connect it back. You had some good questions before, so I'll give you the comparison on kind of what this costs. In your current world with the whole monolith application that you had, if we were to do nothing, you're spending about $11,000 a month for everything. This application that we just kind of demonstrated for the shopping basket, using Gateway, Lambda, and Dynamo, that's going to cost about $730 a year to run. So what you can see is, not a lot of money to kind of get a lot of the volume through that particular asset. Now, by taking shopping basket out of your existing monolith, it's going to reduce the volume over there, and we can kind of, reduce the amount of EC2s that we had there and maybe even lower the configuration settings on those EC2s. So it's going to bring that down from about $11,000 to about $7,100. So you still have some spend on that existing model, but it's going to go down basically because we're taking something out of it. So in essence, the new application, but blending both the old and the new, costs you about $7,800 a year, thus saving you about $3,000 a year just by moving Shopping Basket to this new architecture. And what I want to call out here is this is a per function modernization that we're doing. We're not doing big bang with the whole application. So taking this same model, as we think about maybe the user management, the product catalog, and other things out of the shopping application, you could be looking for every one of those applications, maybe costing around that $700-800 a year, and taking out about $3,000 out of these models. So when we start to kind of, take things out of that monolith and kind of strangle fig things out of there, every time we do it, we're saving money on that side, and then replacing it with a much lower spend on the serverless side. And I did kind of model this all out in the pricing calculator here, which I gave you a link to. So if you want to kind of look at the math behind all of this, you can look at that as well.
Okay, that's great. But Jeff, I do have one question over here. So let's say, yes, it is right. Like we are spending almost like 11K per month. But I mean, as we are hosting it on EC2, so we are pretty much aware that okay, this is the capacity that we are consuming in terms of hosting our application in terms of static. But as now, we will be probably adopting the serverless thing. So what all factors can affect in terms of cost, in terms of hiking it up or even down? Can you just shed some light on that?
Yeah. So within Lambda, some of the things that you can configure, the memory size used by the particular Lambda function, so you can dial that up or down, and there's some tools we can use to help you kind of model what that is. And then you can set limits on how much you want it to scale up, which can kind of keep you within budgetary things, and you can set up Amazon budgets for that kind of stuff. It's also going to give you kind of that direct correlation to as your volume moves up, your cost will go up a little bit, so you'll be able to have that line of sight.
Oh, so despite going to the serverless footprint, we will not be going haywire with the cost, right?
No,
as it will go to scaling. Oh,
no. Yeah, we can control those kind of things.
Nice.
I appreciate your time today. This was a lot of fun for me to build this and kind of work with your team and show it. I'd love to work with you to kind of assemble that pilot team and build out this new microservice. We'll work to launch it in parallel with, I mentioned, and gradually swing traffic over to the new service. As we build this out, we'll assess the architecture design, the process, and the people skills used in building it as we go through kind of our first program increment with it. Step back, look at it, adjust approach as necessary, and then really work towards decomposing the remaining business function in your monolith. Sound like a good plan? I'd love to get started with you.
Yeah, definitely. We would love to get started. But with whom, from the AWS side, probably we should collaborate with?
Yeah, so I'll be kind of your point of contact from the technical perspective, and then through some different mechanisms, working with your account team, your TAM, when we might bring in some other expertise and maybe some of the specific areas that we need to go deeper in, we'll work with you on how to kind of put the right team together to kind of help you along through this journey.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Jeff and Bhaskar. Interesting discussion. And yeah, this is how customer meetings are handled. And being Jeff, being super calm, super composed, having all the ducks in the row kind of a thing. So yeah, it's really nice. And Bhaskar also asks questions which are very legitimate, like upskilling or about the downtime or scaling. So yeah, this is how customer conversations happen. Thanks for that.
Sure thing.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really enjoyed listening to both of you folks. Thank you so much. Very informative.
Exactly. And like Jeff mentioned at the last, like there are multiple people who get involved with customer. It is not just one single person who handles everything. So maybe there is SA who is taking care of technical thing, but there could be account managers, there could be TAM, there could be support people. So a lot of people help customer depending on their size, complexity, and other settings into the environment.
Yeah, certainly kind of in the role play scenario, like,
Yeah, exactly.
I played one person and Bhaskar played one person. In the real world, there'd be probably more than one person presenting the architecture and obviously more than one person on the review side.
True. Yeah. And customer would also bring on multiple stakeholders depending on the type of discussion which is happening. Same goes with AWS also. So yeah, I agree on that. So as everyone, like last step for this particular session, I would request everyone that, hey, please go ahead and complete the knowledge check. We will be sharing the link soon. Please complete the hands-on workshop. We'll be sending the link also and additional material, and I'll ensure that those Udemy training previews are available to you. Be active and support your peers. Check LinkedIn group, check your Discord channel, and ask question, answer question if you can. That should be the good way of learning and growing together. And please share your learning widely. We could obviously see people are dropping off. We could see 700 people joining into the first batch. But yeah, that's what consistency is all about, right? Everyone is keen to get started, but continuing is the best complicated thing. So make sure you stick to it. And that's how the rewards are there. Nobody gets like, you start running and you finish 1 mile and say, I'm done. No, you have to keep on doing that 1 mile multiple times. Then you reach to 10-mile mark. Otherwise, you will never reach it. So keep your efforts continuously and let us know how you liked, what we could improve, what other things you would like to discuss, and we can now frame other information or other batches based on the information we collect. So thank you, everyone. And let me see if Parna is also there. So Parna, great questions. Lots of new stuff, lots of things we asked, and that's how people also learn. And we will share more details into the upcoming emails, so that watch out for those emails and look for information in those emails. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Everyone. Bye-bye.